Good news, everyone! Percy Jackson in a series of unfortunate Spiderwick Chronicles was great! Well, that was a movie. Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon and today I'm giving you my first thoughts on Artemis Fowl. It's a new Disney movie released exclusively on Disney+. It's based on a book with the same name by Ian Colfer, and as you might notice, I'm covered in head to toe sunburn, and that's only the second most painful thing about today for me. The most painful thing is my brain after watching this garbage. So I read a few of the books. I didn't read the whole series because it stopped being good around book 4-ish, but the first couple of books were very entertaining, albeit for kids, but I was a kid when I read it and I enjoyed it a lot. Before I get into the real criticism of this movie, I want to get out of the way that I've seen a lot of criticism for this movie based on faults that were in the book as well. It's the same sort of thing with the Cats the Musical, the movie. If you don't want to see a movie about dancing sexy cats, don't watch this movie. It's not their fault. It was successful before, just because now it's a movie doesn't mean it's bad. Not saying that Cats the Musical, the movie, was good, and nor was this, but there's certain things like, in this universe, dwarves eat dirt and poop it out their butts in order to dig and tunnel, and people are making fun of that, and it's like, well, yeah, but that was in the book, so it worked then. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it wasn't part of a good book before. Anyway, that out of the way, this movie sucks. Like I said, I did read the books, and I was a fan of the books. I enjoyed a lot of these characters, and I noticed that this movie happened to have a lot of names that sounded really familiar. Like the name Artemis Fowl, yeah, that sounds familiar. The name Holly Short, that sounds familiar. The name Mulch Dickums, yeah. All these names I've heard before, but I've never heard of these characters before, because they acted nothing like they were supposed to at all. In fact, I don't think they had personalities at all. None of these characters did. I'm gonna start with Mulch Dickums because he was played by Josh Gad, which when I heard that, I was like, that's a weird choice, because all I really knew Josh Gad from was Olaf, you know, the singing, dancing snowman. And reading the book and reading the graphic novel, these pictures didn't seem to align up in my head. Surprisingly, he did better than I thought he would. He did actually play a character that resembled Mulch Dickums in a way, but he's talking in this voice the whole time, and it's like, you can really tell he's like running out of air because he's trying so hard to talk like this. He's running out of air in almost every sentence, and it's just such a fake bad voice that's obvious and apparent that, yeah, that's not this guy's real voice. With that in mind, he was the best part about this movie. I'll give you a vague synopsis of the book in case you aren't aware of the story. So in the book, you've got Artemis Fowl, who is this kid genius evil mastermind, and he has discovered through research that fairies, this whole fairy world, actually exists simultaneously alongside the human world, unseen. So then with this knowledge, he decides that he's going to manipulate them to steal their gold, because he knows that it's an extremely hard task to do, so he does it partially to steal the gold, partially just for the challenge and the fun of it, because he is an evil mastermind and he's never really met anybody to his equivalent mentally, so he's doing this just to prove that he can, because he's evil and he sees the fun in it and he likes to abuse and use people because why not? So anyway, then he ends up kidnapping Holly Short, who's this fairy that works for the LEP Recon, which is like the police force in the fairy world, and so the rest of the fairies have to try to get her back by doing their normal tricks, but they find out that every trick that is in their book, he already knows because he's read the book. So he manipulates them and ends up stealing the gold and getting away scot-free. In the movie, I don't know what the plot was. So essentially, there's a Scooby-Doo villain that's kidnapped his dad. Which, by the way, he didn't have a dad in the book. His dad was dead and his mother was deranged. In the movie, his mom is nowhere to be seen and his dad is just off and away, I guess. So Artemis Fowl wants to get him back from Opal Cowboy, who's a villain from a later Artemis Fowl book and had nothing to do with this story. So he wants to get his dad back, and the way he can get his dad back is by getting this artifact from the fairy world. Now, he also kidnaps Holly Short, again, like in the book, and the fairies want to get her back. So he says, well, give me my dad back for her. And they're like, we don't have your dad. And so you've got this big convoluted story going back and forth where the villain isn't in this plot. The villain has kidnapped his dad and then has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. At all. If that sounds boring and abstract, you're goddamn right it is. Literally, the villain just kidnaps his dad within the first 15 minutes of this movie, and then every once in a while we cut to this weird random Scooby-Doo villain, and that's the only connection there is to them with this plot. The rest of the story has nothing to do with anything. It's just, I'm gonna steal from you. Why? Well, because I want my dad back. We don't have him. Okay, well, I want him. You've taken this character that's supposed to be an evil super genius and you've dumbed him down to just your average genius, but you never get shown how he's a genius other than he knows that the chair is a fake. There's this antique chair and he knows it's fake. We never see how he's a genius outside of that. He's also not evil anymore, and so, he's not Artemis Fowl. Nothing about this kid is Artemis Fowl. Holly Short, who is this leprechaun officer, is just a little kid playing dress up. And then you've got Butler, who's this, martial arts master, agent butler guy. But he's just kind of lumbering around. He never does anything impressive that looks like he knows how to fight. And then you've got Commander Root, who is the head of the fairy police force, who is this big macho, munching on a cigar, sexist type that Holly Short is constantly butting heads with, and it's played by Judi Dench. Also, just really weird thing here. In the book, Holly Short is described as having nut brown skin, but she's white in this. And then the butler is white in the graphic novel, but he's black in this. So you took the butler character, the servant character, and made him black. And then the girl character that's supposed to be the leading female role, that is supposed to be attractive to Artemis Fowl, maybe not in this book, but later on down the road, and you made her white instead. You, Disney. Disney's supposed to be progressive and promote diversity, and you made the servant character black, and you made the attractive, interesting lead female character white instead. Really, Disney? Okay. You suck. Also, by the way, with these characters, Holly and Artemis, they're supposed to evolve into having some sort of friendship, possibly even attraction later on down the road, but in this first book are supposed to detest each other. Holly Short hates all humans and finds him completely detestable because he is a detestable person. He's a criminal who cares nothing for anybody else or what anybody else feels or thinks. He also doesn't see fairies as humans. Well, they're technically not, but he doesn't see them as being important. He sees them almost as animals and is fine with abusing them. And they are both at odds at all costs, even though by the end of the book, they help each other out a little bit. They hate each other and do not get along at all. In this, they're all buddy-buddy. And we've got this stupid little scene where Artemis says to Holly, "My dad's been kidnapped." And Holly says, "Well, my dad's dead." Okay? Who cares? Nobody asked you, is this supposed to be a bonding moment? Nobody gives a f***. Nobody cares. Shut up. Go away. You're annoying. Literally, I don't know what the plot of this film was. I don't know. There's a very obvious outline in the story, in the original story, that they kind of vaguely follow bullet points we've got Holly Short gets kidnapped, and we've got a time stop thing. And if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't, it doesn't matter. If I'm spoiling stuff, okay, you know what, spoiler warning. Who cares, though? This movie sucks. If you've read the book, you don't want to watch this, and if you haven't read the book, don't watch it. Why would you bother? Go read it instead, and then not watch it. So you got these random bullet points that I remember that from the book, but there's no flow in this story. It felt like something copied off of Artemis Fowl. Like I'm watching it going, this really reminds me of Artemis Fowl. Huh. I wonder if Ian Colfer's gonna sue them because they ripped him off. They ripped off his idea. It's like, it's not the same story, but it's very similar if you weren't expecting it to be the same story. And I have questions too about the writers that wrote this. 'Cause they're dumb. They're very dumb. In case you don't know, there's this piece of technology, this very technology called time stop, where you put this bubble over this area and it does a couple of things. One, it freezes time outside of the bubble, while two, everything inside the bubble becomes and stays the state that it's in. So if you're awake when the bubble gets put up, you stay awake. And if you're asleep when the bubble gets put up, you stay asleep. There's no changing that. So in this movie, you have a situation where a troll gets loose at this wedding in Italy. So they put up a time stop. And the time stop slows down the wedding and stops everything so they can come in, get rid of the troll, mind wipe everybody, and reset up the wedding. Okay, so maybe they changed what a time stop in this universe is, right? Maybe it stops everything inside the bubble instead of outside. Okay, we changed the technology. Not accurate to the book, but fine. Except for later in the movie, they use a time stop and it changes time outside of the bubble while everything inside the bubble is normal. So you didn't even stay consistent to your made-up stupid universe that you ruined. Like, it's pretty simple. Everything in the bubble, fine. Everything outside, frozen. But you couldn't even get that right. You switched it. You used it twice and you got it wrong once. That's 50% of the time you were wrong. And then to go along with all of that, we've just got your average run-of-the-mill horrible comedy where you've got stupid jokes. Like you've got Mulch Diggums, who for some reason, even though he's a dwarf, is the same height as everybody else, and they keep bringing it up like, oh, you're not a real dwarf. And he's like, I am too. I'm just a tall dwarf. It's like, okay, did you get that from that stupid, what was that show called? That was already a joke told in that Gallivant TV show, if anybody remembers that. And it was also told 1,000,000 times better by Nick Frost.
I'm so sorry. Aren't you supposed to be taller? I mean, not to be rude, but you did say that your head's blocked out the sun.
Yes, they do block out the sun. You've got to catch it at the right angle. Sorry, can I just... Here? There. Complete darkness.
Are you sure that you're giants?
Of course, we are giants. It's very short giants, so...
Fee, fi, fo, fum.
Well said, Titan.
And then he also later says, most humans are afraid of gluten. Do you really think that they can handle fairies? My God, these jokes are awful. And going back to the whole changing Commander Root into a woman, you had this great opportunity with Holly Short to show sexism in the police force. You had this perfect opportunity where Holly Short was getting dismissed and blown off by Commander Root because she was this young female character. Now, the one in charge is an old female character. Why? What? You've ruined that opportunity. And I get it, the characters in the original book were all pretty basic and pretty stereotypical in those old cop movies where you've got the head Commander Root, who's really mad guy who chews on the cigar and always yells at everybody. And then you've got the young up-and-coming female police officer, and you've got this other cop that's above her who wants to be in charge, and he's just really annoying and stupid, and he gets in charge and abuses his power instantly. There was very stereotypical characters, but it was a plot that worked for them, and it was fine. It was fine in every way. I'm not saying the books were perfect. They were kids' books that had very creative elements to them that I enjoyed a lot. This movie cannot say the same. Cannot. Like, I don't understand the choices, because, like, I have often said before that when you're adapting a book or whatever to a movie, changes are going to be made. That's part of the adaptation process, and that's fine and that's good as long as the adaptations make sense. Like, I'm actually a very big fan of A Series of Unfortunate Events, the movie, even more so than the books. I read the books and I thought they were fine. I actually really enjoyed the movie though, because a lot of changes were made, but I was fine with and even happy with the changes that were made. In this, I don't know why any of the changes that were changed. I don't know why any of it happened. I just, what was the goal? Why was Disney afraid to have Artemis Fowl be a bad guy? Why couldn't we have a bad guy, a villain, a super villain genius character as the main character? Why were you afraid to do that? And if you were so afraid to do it, why did you make an adaptation of Artemis Fowl then, you idiot? That's the whole point of his character. It's like saying, hey, let's make a Batman adaptation, but let's cut out the part where his parents die, because that's a little dark. And then also, I don't like his whole dark image, so let's lighten it up a little bit, and you know what, maybe give him some nipples. It would be like doing that, and nobody would ever think to do that. I don't know, it's just, Why was Harry Potter the only teen novel adaptation that went remotely right? Like, Percy Jackson sucked. Spiderwick Chronicles sucked. They all suck except Harry Potter for some reason. Why is that? Why is that? Yeah, okay. I think that's all I have to say about that. It was bad. It was very bad. I was expecting it to be bad, and yeah, expectations met. So thanks for watching, guys. Please like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye. Sunburn. Ooh. Ooh.